Welcome to Wax and Relax, the Vinyl Listening Room. I'm John, and they're all dead. That's where we're going today. Bands that have lost their entire classic lineup. We had a lot of them this year, so that's where we're starting. The criteria is it's got to be a rock or a pop band where all the original members are gone, and their music had to have come out, or their primary music, the one that you know and I know, and that the general public kind of identify with, that has to be during my lifetime. So we'll uncover all that as we move on. I'm going to start with Garth Hudson. We lost in 2025. Final member of the band to pass. Any of these cases I'm going to try to show the last record that they did with the classic lineup. If I don't have it available, I'm going to show my favorite record. And love this record. In 1974, the final record from the classic lineup of Badfinger came out, Wish You Were Here, and in 2025 we lost Joey Molland. In fact, I showed this not long ago and talked about that and mentioned that I had just been to a show that he was scheduled to play and was not part of it. He was in the hospital, and unfortunately he has since passed. So that was one of the things that kind of kicked off the idea of this video, as well as another video I did recently where I talked about the New York Dolls, and I showed the Too Much Too Soon record, and shortly thereafter we lost David Johansen. So yeah, 2025 has been brutal so far. David was definitely a big loss for those of us in the punk rock community. The Dolls were very instrumental in the start of everything that happened in the eastern United States. In 2024, we lost Henry Feinbrough. He was the final member of the Spinners to leave us. And that classic lineup that did all those records in the early 70s, where all those hits that are on this particular record, they are now all gone. That band started in 1954, and there's still a version of the Spinners out there, but none of them are that classic lineup from the 70s. Another one that's often talked about as being a dead band is Lynyrd Skynyrd. You even had Warren Zevon refer to him as a dead band. We lost Gary Rossington in 2023. So essentially we lost the classic lineup that did the first two records. Artemis Pyle is still alive, but he didn't come on board until the third record. Ricky Medlock is currently the guitar player. He was an early member of Skynyrd, but it was before the recording days, or before they were signed to MCA and put out their first record. This guy here. I know that he was on when they collected those on a compilation called Lynyrd Skynyrd's First and Last that came out in '78. But that's not really considered an original recording or original studio recording. It's a compilation, kind of to capitalize on the hunger for the band after the primary members passed in the airplane crash. But yeah, Skynyrd, definitely, all these guys are gone. Another southern rock band where they're all gone. Molly Hatchet. We lost Steve Holland in 2020 to COVID, and he was the final one off those first two records. In fact, the replacement singer for Danny Joe Brown, Jimmy Farrar, died in he has since passed, but he was on the 1980 Beating the Odds record. So, those first three records, that band just doesn't exist anymore. There's a version of Molly Hatchet out there. Unfortunately, they're led by two guys that didn't join until the late 80s, early 90s. At that point, they were a classic rock already. 2015, we lost Lemmy. That was the final member of that original trio of Fast Eddie Clarke and Filthy Animal Taylor, and some classic records that those gentlemen put out, this being the last of that Iron Fist from 1982. But you can't talk about losing Lemmy and losing Motorhead if you're not going to talk about the Ramones. In 2014, we lost Tommy, and he was the last surviving member of the original classic lineup that did those first several records. Tommy wasn't even supposed to be in the band. He was a studio guy and audio helper and all that type of thing. Joey was the drummer. Joey decided he wanted to step out front and be the lead singer, and they couldn't find a suitable drummer. So Tommy was like, "The hell with it! I'll learn how to do it." And he created a drum style called, it's Ramones drumming, and it's not that easy to do. He created it out of a guy who had never played drums before. So yeah, that was, there's not too many that qualify for a complete lineup loss. One that could would be Jimi Hendrix Experience. However, Mitch Mitchell died in 2008, but they didn't have a record out in my lifetime. It came out the year before I was born, and they actually broke up pretty much the month I was born. So, having said that, Hendrix has been present in my life, but by the time they started making records after I was born, they were already Band of Gypsys. So the Jimi Hendrix Experience would qualify, if you want to bend the rules a little bit. And the Four Tops, Duke Fakir died in 2024. All their stuff, all their big hits and everything came out before I was born. There was one a couple of years later, Ain't No Woman Like the One I Got. It was really kind of an inconsequential record, but the single was big. And they kind of had a fluke minor hit in 1981 with When She Used to Be My Girl. But other than that, they didn't really do anything much more than the nostalgia tours during my lifetime. I loved Four Tops, but didn't really qualify because there was no record in my lifetime that was significant with the original lineup. So that's it. They're all gone. They're all dead. So maybe we'll bring it a little happier next time if we can get up to 100 people. I'm still looking to break that mark on the subscribers. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe. The channel really needs some help to get to that logarithm, to get us to a bigger audience, and then we can start getting a little more interaction. We do have the Facebook page, Wax Nor Lax Vinyl Listening Room. Until then, we'll see you on the B-side.